the tribal chief himself, the head of the table, Roman freaking Reigns. And the question right now is very simple, but also one of the biggest questions in wrestling today. Should Roman Reigns return to WWE right now? Not later, not eventually, not next season, not after his Hollywood ventures, but right here. Right now, because make no mistake, Roman is not just another superstar, he is the superstar. He's the guy who took WWE from the pandemic era to one of the hottest runs of dominance the industry has ever seen. The man went from being booed out of arenas to having entire crowds acknowledging him with one of the loudest chants you will ever hear in your life. But here's the kicker. Every single week that Roman isn't around, the conversation gets louder. Fans are debating, social media is on fire, every comment section is a war zone. Half the audience is begging for his return because WWE feels like it's missing that spark without him, and the other half is screaming that his era of dominance has already done its job and that it's time for fresh blood to shine. So let's break it down, let's call it like it is, and let's figure out if the tribal chief needs to return right now. Now, let's set the stage. Roman Reigns was last seen being brutally written off after Clash in Paris. The beatdown was vicious, the camera work was cinematic, the angle was designed to protect him while simultaneously giving WWE an excuse for his absence. But let's be real, folks. We all know the truth. Roman has been busy filming Street Fighter, playing Akuma in a massive Hollywood project. That's the kind of role that cements him as more than just a wrestler. It's star-making, it's crossover appeal, it's the Rock Blueprint 2.0. So you've got one of WWE's biggest names on the sidelines, cashing in on opportunities, but in the process, WWE is forced to run its weekly programming without the anchor that has carried its main event scene for years. And if you've been watching, you know it. Raw and SmackDown just don't feel the same. You've got strong performers, sure, Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, Gunther, Jey Uso, even a guy like Braun Breaker who's coming into his own. But nobody, and I mean nobody, brings that same aura, that same big fight feel that Roman brings. You hear his music hit and the crowd erupts like it's an earthquake. You see him slowly walk to the ring and suddenly the show feels elevated. The stakes feel higher, everything feels more important. That's not just hype, that's not just a gimmick, that's star power. And right now, WWE desperately needs it. But hold on, let's not fantasy book this like internet marks screaming into their keyboards. We've got to be honest and balanced here. Bringing Roman back immediately is not without risk. First off, overexposure. One of the reasons Roman's run has worked so well is because he's been treated like an attraction. He's not out there every week in throwaway matches or corny backstage segments. He shows up when it matters, he wrestles when the stakes are sky high, and that's what makes the aura so powerful. If you just bring him back randomly on a Monday Night Raw with no build, you risk diluting the mystique. And let's not forget, Roman's absence has been giving other superstars a chance to grow. Cody Rhodes finally had space to carry the ball without the constant shadow of the tribal chief. Seth Rollins, even with injuries, has remained a vital part of the weekly grind. Guys like Breaker and Solo Sikoa have had more TV time to build themselves up. If Roman storms back right now, there's a legitimate concern that all of that progress gets shoved aside in favor of another Reigns dominant cycle. And whether you like it or not, there are fans out there who are already burned out on the Roman Reigns era. They're tired of the long entrances, the slow promos, the endless domination. They want something new, but here's the counterpoint, and it's a strong one. WWE without Roman doesn't feel like WWE at full power. Crown Jewel is coming up, one of WWE's biggest international shows, and guess whose face is already plastered all over the promotional posters? That's right, the Tribal Chief. That tells you everything you need to know. WWE is preparing the battlefield. They're getting ready to pull the trigger on his return, and they're not doing it for some random mid-card storyline. No, they want Roman back for a blockbuster moment, and the fans know it. The second his return is teased, X, is going to implode. Reddit threads are going to be overflowing with speculation. YouTube channels are going to pump out theories faster than a Brock Lesnar suplex. The hype train will be unstoppable. So let's talk about the positives of bringing him back right now. Number 1, ratings. It's no secret that WWE, while hot at times, still struggles with consistency in its week-to-week numbers. Roman's presence guarantees a spike. People tune in because they know something important is happening. Number 2, story momentum. The last time we saw Roman, he was left destroyed, which sets the stage for a revenge arc. He doesn't just walk back in with his smug grin and his championship. He walks in with fire, with a reason, with payback in mind. That creates instant intrigue. Number 3, global impact. Roman is the face you put on posters, the guy you send to ESPN, the name you pitch to Saudi Arabia, Australia, or the UK to sell out stadiums. His return makes headlines, not just in wrestling media, but mainstream outlets too. That's currency WWE cannot ignore. But now let's address the negatives, because I know the internet marks in the back are screaming at me right now. If Roman comes back too soon, there's a real chance WWE wastes his return pop. We all know how this goes. You bring him back, you get that nuclear crowd reaction, but then what? what? If there's no long-term plan, if it's just to pop a rating, then it's a 5-star disaster waiting to happen. Fans aren't dumb, they'll see through it, and let's not forget, Roman's Hollywood career is just starting. If WWE gets greedy and tries to overuse him, you could end up in a situation where he's juggling movie commitments and wrestling at the same time, and both sides suffer. Nobody wants another part-time champion scenario where the belt vanishes for months at a time with no payoff. That era already left a sour taste in the mouths of fans, and repeating it now would be catastrophic. So what's the solution? Timing. The key is timing. Roman doesn't need to return on a random episode. He needs to return when it matters. And right now, Crown Jewel is the perfect storm. Big stage, international spotlight, the kind of event that can feel like WrestleMania light. That's when you pull the trigger. You build the anticipation with subtle teases. Maybe a video package. Maybe Paul Heyman hinting that the tribal chief is watching. Maybe an anonymous message on the Titantron that sends the arena into chaos. And then, at the right moment, you hit that theme song, the arena explodes, and boom, Roman Reigns is back. That's how you do it. That's how you maximize the return. That's how you make sure it's not wasted. Now let's talk fan reaction, because this is where it gets spicy. Live crowds have been bipolar when it comes to Roman. In the early days of his push, he was booed mercilessly. Fans rejected him harder than they rejected the gobbledygooker. But once he embraced the tribal chief character, everything flipped. Suddenly he was magnetic. He had the crowd in the palm of his hand. Every arena was filled with people raising their index fingers, acknowledging him as the head of the table. That's power. And make no mistake, the second that music hits again, you're going to hear one of the loudest reactions of the year. But on the flip side, the online discourse is a battlefield. There are fans who are tired of Roman dominating. They call him stale. They call him predictable. They call him a roadblock for new talent. You can't ignore that side of the reaction. If he comes back and WWE immediately throws every title back on him, you risk alienating that portion of the fan base. Here's where I stand. Roman Reigns should return, but it has to be done with precision. WWE has a rare opportunity here. They can bring him back not as the unbeatable smug champion we've grown accustomed to, but as a man with something to prove. A man who was left beaten and embarrassed. A man with a chip on his shoulder. That's compelling. That's fresh. That's how you take an already legendary character and give him new life. And let's not forget, Roman is a master of psychology. He knows how to milk a moment, how to deliver a promo that feels like it cuts straight to your soul, how to make every match feel like a war. If WWE books this right, his return could be the biggest thing in wrestling all year. So should Roman Reigns return to WWE right now? My answer is yes, but not blindly. Yes, because WWE feels incomplete without him. Yes, because the fans want that electricity back. Yes, because the timing with Crown Jewel is too perfect to ignore. But also, yes, with the caveat that it has to be meaningful. It has to be executed like a main event angle, not a cheap pop. WWE cannot afford to waste Roman's aura. They cannot afford to bungle this return. The tribal chief is bigger than the titles, bigger than any one storyline. He is the heartbeat of the company, and when he returns, it has to be an event that reminds everyone why he is, without question, the single biggest star in professional wrestling today. When you talk about why fans are clamoring for Roman's return, you've got to understand that it's not just about one man holding a title or cutting promos. It's about the atmosphere he creates the second he steps through that curtain. Wrestling is as much about spectacle as it is about in-ring work, and Roman has mastered the art of making everything around him feel like a big deal. Fans are craving that energy because, without it, the weekly shows feel like they're missing the centerpiece that ties everything together. Sure, you can have incredible matches from workhorses like Gunther or Seth Rollins, but when Roman is there, it's not just a great match. It feels like history in the making. That's the intangible magic fans are desperate to feel again. Another reason fans are demanding his return is closure. The Bloodline storyline, arguably the most compelling long-term arc WWE has produced in decades, doesn't feel finished. People invested years into watching Roman manipulate his family, rise to untouchable power, and then slowly watch the cracks in his empire form. They saw Jey Uso break away, Solo Sikoa rise as a wild card, and Jimmy Uso struggle with loyalty. But when Roman vanished, the narrative felt incomplete. Fans don't want the story to end with an off-screen absence. They want Roman back in the mix to either reclaim his throne or finally watch him lose everything in dramatic fashion. Without him, the payoff doesn't exist, and that gnaws at fans who've been emotionally invested for years. There's also the star power factor that extends beyond WWE's bubble. Roman is one of the few active wrestlers who feels like a mainstream star. His Hollywood work, his ESPN interviews, his presence in pop culture, all of that elevates WWE in the eyes of casual fans. When Roman's around, lapsed viewers who haven't watched wrestling in years suddenly pay attention again. That matters to fans who want to see their favorite product thrive, because they know Roman is the guy who can get wrestling back into mainstream conversations. The audience wants him back, not just for themselves, but because they know his presence lifts the entire company's profile.